Aindra Prabhu in his room, it was his bhajan kutir. He lived there his whole time in Brindavan, 24 years, that one room. And I actually asked him, I said, Prabhu, I did this calculation. After I started to spend some years as a brahmachari in the ashram, I was like, Prabhu, you go from your room to the washroom, back to your room to the temple room, that's it. I don't see you do anything else. And it hit me, he's been doing that for 24 years. He practically didn't leave the compound. Occasionally he'd go out and do some shopping, usually he'd send someone to. Sometimes he'd go to the bazaar to buy some deity outfits for his deities on festival days. That's all he did. His room, the washroom, the temple room, seva. I was amazed. So yeah, he was in his room, but he used to lock himself in his room. Or he'd have someone lock him in the room, so it would appear like he wasn't there. You just see this lock hanging on the outside. And if you knocked, if he was in, he wouldn't respond. So you wouldn't really know if he was in or not, but that's how he kept himself from being disturbed. And he would just chant 64 rounds, do his deity worship, read, study. And then he would open up his door to come out for Kirtan, and then he'd leave his door open for devotees to come and visit him after Sandhya Artik, after 7. And then he'd make himself available from 7 till Mangal Arti. And it could be all kinds of stuff going on in his room. Sometimes he'd be reading the Goswami's literatures. And if he felt someone in the room wasn't eligible, he'd say, hey, Prabhu, who are you? Where are you from? What's your story? It was quite an intimate circle. Again, back to Kartik 97. I was introduced to the inner circle team of Aindra's crew. And I went in this room. It was pretty clean, very spacious. Ram Roy Prabhu was reading Krishna book. And Aindra Prabhu was kind of finishing up his deity puja. I think he was putting his deities he was making an offering. And then he'd put his deities to rest after making an offering. So Ram Roy would be reading, he'd be putting his deities to rest, and periodically he'd turn and he'd comment on Srila Prabhupada's Krishna book. And then he'd transfer the Mahaprasadam, he'd put the deities to rest, then we'd all sit down. No one was allowed to talk, it was just reading Krishna book. And we'd all sit down and take Khichdi Prasad together. And then he'd comment some more things on what was discussed in the Krishna book. And then he'd ask everyone politely to leave because he had to take rest to get up early to chant 64 rounds. He was chanting 64 rounds every day for Kartik that year. So the room was in the evening, a place he could go to hear some discussions and of course get some Mahaprasad. If you were lucky. If you were lucky enough to wait up that late to score some Mahaprasad. And of course, if you wanted it, it'd be good luck getting up. Yeah, but his room, very unique. I got him permission to take the Cowdon out of the rooms. First of all, he did his room without anyone knowing. And then he did all the 24-hour Kirtan rooms. Then I got permission from the Gurukul headmaster. I think it was Ananda Vrndavana Mataji at that time. I got permission from her. And then the Gurukul put Cowdon on their walls while we did the same. So the whole building was kind of uniform. But then Aindra developed this art design with the Cowdon, with his hands. He would shape and model the patterns and the designs. Then he trained up some local Brajbasi people, village people, how to do it. And then a 2-year project commenced, beautification of the Brahmachari ashram. And it's still there. It's still standing. It's very beautiful. Because his mood was to be connecting into Braj. Why Cowdon, people said? Well, first of all, it's pure, and he mixed it with Brindavan dust and Brindavan earth, and he would sleep on that floor. He'd put Cowdon on the floor, thick, solid. And the idea was that he was sleeping on the earth. I asked him, And he told me, you get spiritual benefit from sleeping in the dust of Brindavan. This is the dust in which Krishna has walked in. So then I asked him one day, Prabhu, I said, I'm looking at your room. What's your trip? It's pretty tripped out. What's going on here? I see the tamal tree, I see the arches. I mean, what's the story? I understood the tamal tree was the original tamal tree that Srila Prabhupada would sit under, and he had instructed it must not be cut down at the time of construction. But then unfortunately it got diseased, root rots, and they had to cut it because the tiles stopped the tree from breathing. So now the new tamal tree has enough space to breathe. So when they cut it down, he saved a major piece from the top of the tree and planted it in his room. Initially he wanted to make a deity of Krishna from it, but then the guy who carves the deities, they told him that the tamal wood, it grows in a certain way, it's difficult to carve it. He wanted to have a tamal Krishna deity. And then because the person who carved the deities told him it couldn't be fashioned properly, then he planted it in the back kind of center area of his room. And it just remained there for years and years and years. I couldn't figure it out. And then one day it was just me and him alone in the room, and I said to him, Prabhu, what's your trip? I can't get it. I don't get it. He says, well, have a look. Try and see if you can figure it out. So I was looking at the room. Yeah, like, what's with the sky? He painted the ceiling sky with clouds. And I was like, it's like, don't you understand my heart, Gopal? Don't you understand my bhav? This is the Krishna Bharam Mandir. Here's Gaurnitai, here's Krishna Varam, here's Radha Shamasundar. And I'm living under the tamal tree, Srila Prabhupada's tamal tree. I'm sleeping in the courtyard of Krishna Bharam Mandir, living under the tree like a Goswami. That's my mood. That's what this is. And then it hit me. He designed that whole room like the Krishna Bharam Mandir. There's the archways, on top of his altar there's the little domes, there's Gaurnitai, Krishna Balaram, Govardhan Shilas, Radha Gopi Janavalava. And there's the sky of the courtyard, and there's the tamal tree. And his mood, his bhav was that he was taking rest, sleeping underneath the tamal tree, like a Goswami, living under the tree, doing his bhajan underneath the tree. It was quite a deep meditation. So then when we heard the recording where he desired that his ashes be kept near to his deities, I decided with another devotee who also had a dream, that Aindra came to him in the dream and indicated that location. We put his ashes in a small container underneath his tamal tree, under Srila Prabhupada's tamal tree in his room. So they're near to the deities. And that's his bhajan kutir and his samadhi.
Another amazing story with Aindra. Forgive me if you're watching this video. I mean, forgive me for telling your embarrassing story if you're watching this. But we used to go to Mayapur every year to do Kirtan in Mayapur for 5 days in front of Panchatattva. Now that started in 2004. After year 2004, we were going there every year. Gopal was arranging that, all the things, Kirtan timings and all that kind of stuff. So that started in 2004. All the way up to 2009 was the last year that we did those Mayapur Kirtans. So a lot of the time, I, myself, and a few others, we would travel with Aindra there. We would go with Aindra, we'd fly with Aindra, on the plane from Calcutta to Delhi, and then, someone would come pick us up. But this was the first year that it happened. This year, it was just that 1 year, that year 2004, when we went to Mayapur, the first year, it was just me and Aindra on the plane. That's it. Just me and Aindra, we were flying. The next years to come was like a whole group, Myself, sometimes I wouldn't even fly with him. Sometimes I'd take the train, in the next years to come. But he would always have maybe like at least a few people flying with him sometimes. But this time it was just me and Aindra flying together. That's it, just us two. So, we're on our way to Calcutta. We're on the plane, we're flying together, sitting together on the plane. And this Gurukuli girl comes up. Well, sorry if this is you, if you're watching this. But she walks up. She's wearing pants, jeans, and karmi clothes. She's a Gurukuli girl from Alachua, I think. And when devotees see other devotees in public places, sometimes they meet each other, and they're like, oh, Haribol Prabhu, this, that. They meet, they start asking different questions, and it's like the first time they've met. So she started asking him questions, naturally, because they just met, and she was like, oh, you live in Brindavan, and he's like, yeah, I live in Vrindavan, and she was like, oh, what service do you do there? And he was like, yeah, I do 24-hour kirtan, that's my service, 24-hour kirtan. And she said, oh, you do 24-hour kirtan with Aindra Prabhu? And he said, I am Aindra Prabhu. And just imagine how embarrassing that is, You're talking to Aindra. You don't know this is Aindra. You've heard of Aindra. And Aindra is here. You don't know that you're talking to Aindra. And you ask him, oh, you do kirtan with Aindra? You do 24-hour kirtan with Aindra? Just imagine that. Right? And she was so embarrassed. And then, they ended their conversation, and then she left, and, we were like, laughing and joking about it afterwards. He mentioned something about how, why do they wear pants? They shouldn't, what's wrong with them? They should just wear devotional clothes. Why are they so scared? Just wear devotional clothes. Why wear pants?
Aindra Prabhu really struggled with a lot of bodily diseases. He used to get boils a lot. He used to get heat rash. When I joined the 24-hour kirtan department, there was no drinking water. Didn't matter what the weather was, there was no drinking water. We'd get some kind of water from the Goshala, but it wasn't really that. It was hit or miss whether you got diarrhea. Somehow I had a little Lakshmi, I'd buy a 2-liter bottle of T-series Ganga Jal, and that's all I would drink every day, even though I probably needed 4 or 5 liters in the summer, but that's all I could afford to drink. There was no drinking water, it wasn't proper facility, it was just very austere. He'd had typhoid, jaundice, malaria, you name it, all the diseases you could get in India, he had them practically. He really struggled. Very limited financial resource. Abhiram Prabhu gave him some donations. Ram Bhadra helped him produce the CDs initially. That came more around the late 90s. But initially, from 1986 right through to the late 1990s, he struggled like anything. He told me Abhiram Prabhu helped him produce some of his first cassette recordings when he was in a financial position to support him. He mostly struggled for manpower. He wanted to have solid brahmacharis who could just stay there with him. And I understood that when I requested to leave the saffron cloth and to Grihastha ashram. It was more than breaking a relationship with him. It felt like the end of the world. So I promised him that even though I'll be getting married or whatever, I'll stay fixed with this service for at least more than 6 months of the year. I promised him like that. So even though I stayed outside and whatever, I came and I served. And I just showed him that I still had that commitment to him. Even though he faced all kinds of challenges. His main challenge, I would say, was to have a strong team of committed core men that would stay with him like he had in the early days, when he initiated 24-hour kirtan in 1986. There was a solid core team. And then that core team, I think the last person left was Madhava. And then like a new chapter, a new era started with 24-hour kirtan. And it kept on going through these different eras. As the town Brindavan changed, so did the kirtan scene and the kirtan party change, and like that. But I would say his main struggle was that he set the bar of devotional service up here, and we were down here somewhere. He set pure devotional service so high. His standards, his kirtan standards, where he was at in his own personal conduct, that it was great. It pushed us to come to the level of pure devotional service, which sometimes we glimpsed. Sometimes I would say I glimpsed. I'm not going to speak for anyone else. But it was very hard to maintain being in that. And that's what he did. Those were the struggles that he undertook and the austerities he did to maintain being in that platform of pure devotional service. I understood Aindra Prabhu as a pure devotee in practice. He wasn't at the stage of perfection, and he did have His way of being, sometimes very intense, very fiery. Sometimes it could be a little too much, but that was contrasted with his practice of pure devotion. And that level of pure devotion, it's what kept the 24 Kirtan alive. It's what kept it going. His determination, his driving force. It's very easy to pick up from another man's 24 years of work. But he struggled for 24 years to keep that Kirtan going. All seasons, all weather. 365 days a year. Disease or no disease. Money or no money. Men or no men. He kept going. Kept it going somehow. And in actuality, the 24 Kirtan is the heartbeat. Because this is Srila Prabhupada's home. If we see ISKCON as a body, as a personality, Srila Prabhupada's in the heart of that. What's in the heart of Srila Prabhupada is what he's come to give us, which is Kirtan, the Yuga Dharma. So Aindra Prabhu kept that heartbeat pumping, healthy, strong. Didn't skip a beat. Timing was always right on. And somehow or another, by Krishna's mercy, Srila Prabhupada's mercy, Aindra Prabhu's mercy, it's still going on. We just celebrated 25 years of 24-hour Kirtan. Silver anniversary. Same, Padayatra India, 25 years. Somehow by Krishna and Srila Prabhupada's mercy, the yagya is going on. The sacrifice is continuing. Some good men are coming, some people come, some people go, but still Krishna arranges. Krishna's in charge. And ultimately, Aindra Prabhu told me, he said, you know what? Krishna sends people, some people leave. Okay, Krishna will send someone else. He'd seen so many people come and go. There was very few that remained a consistent theme with him in service with 24 Kirtan. And that's what's comprising some of the core members now, from that time, from his time. But he struggled. He struggled with a lot of bodily diseases. So I was very concerned about his health, his actual physical body and his well-being. And I would make it a point to try and do something about it. I bought him an air conditioner. And for the first time in 20-something years, he never got prickly heat rash or boils. From the humidity, the skin gets skin infections. Someone gave him a nice donation in Purushottamasi. He bought a water filter and provided pure drinking water, at least filtered water for the brahmacharis. He was always giving as much as he could. He lived like a Brahmin. It came, he gave. It came, he gave. He never stashed. And if I did find something stashed, it was because he forgot about it. He'd stash prasadam in his room and it'd be like a month old and the insects would have eaten it to pieces. Something like that. I found an envelope with money in it from like 15 years ago. You know, he was just so detached. He just totally really didn't. He wasn't so materially focused. But when he would, he could do something beautiful. When he would focus on a project, construction project. One time he just focused the whole summertime to renovating the toilets. The toilet room. And then the showers. Tiling it. He was in there with machines cleaning it. I said, Prabhu, aren't you coming for Kirtan? He snapped at me, screaming, don't you understand the principle of Trinadapi? Trinadapi Sinechena. You get a brush and you clean the toilet right now. Whoa, Prabhu, I'm going to get my mridanga and play Kirtan. What do you want to do? You coming or not? When you're in the bodily condition that I'm in, when you're as degraded and as fallen as I am, then you're going to realize that you have to clean the toilet. But you're fortunate. You don't have to, but I have to.
When I first got together with my wife, this was Kartik 2006. So she came with her father, you know, and at that time we used to, you know, Aindra used to arrange a car or cars, you know, 3 or 4 different cars, maybe three different cars of devotees to go with him to Radhakund for Bahulastami, because we used to do Kirtan there, you know, from 10 to 12 and then take bath. So, is that enough explanation? Okay, so we were trying to figure out, okay, who's going to go in this car, who's going to go in that car, you know, and so on. I told him, you know, I have a couple people that also want to come with us, you know. So I wasn't really ready to tell him the whole thing, like, you know, his daughter. I didn't want to say that. I'm bringing this girl also. There's this girl that wants to come. So, just to kind of make it discreet, and so I said, yeah, there's this friend of mine, he wants to come, referring to my father-in-law, Guru Krishna Das. So I told him, yeah, he and his son or daughter, I'm not sure, he and his kid. He asked, oh, is it a boy or a girl? I was like, I'm not sure yet, I'm not sure. Son or daughter is coming, I'm not sure. So then, when they showed up, or when they arrived in Vrindavan, then it was, or maybe somebody, Bhagavad Prana or somebody had told Aindra that, this devotee that came, Guru Krishna, Vrindavan's with his daughter now, So then, one time I came in the room, Gopal was in here too, just Gopal, Aindra, then I came in. And Aindra said, so, what did he say? So it's come to our attention, or something like that. It's come to our attention that the son of Guru Krishna's daughter is your fiancé. And so then, oh yeah, okay, whatever. So then, that was already revealed. So it became like a whole joke. I guess Bhagavad Purana is his god brother. He knew somehow. I didn't want to just tell him up front. Just yet. So at that time, it became like it became the big joke. Oh yeah, Guru Krishna's son or daughter. We don't know yet. It was like a big joke.
We were in Kirtan. I was playing Mridanga. At a certain point, I became like Aindra's Mridanga player, and I thought I was the man. And I was coming out with all this funky stuff and this and that, and he just stops the Kirtan dead. No, I want this beat. And he takes the Mridanga off me, and he shows me this really simple old school beat. Something like that. And I was just like, okay, but he did it in such a way that it smashed my ego completely. If I was white, I would have turned red. I was just like, whoa. Okay, but then when he took the mridanga and started playing it, like goofing around, then it kind of like made everything cool. That I understood it wasn't coming from any kind of malice or ego. He handed me the mridanga back. He says, you get it? All right, let's go. Boom, and then he dropped the kirtan back in. That was pretty embarrassing, heavy moment in public. But then privately in the room, he showed me the beat. Pretty simple beat. And he was playing that beat when I first saw him. It's a mridanga beat that Akinchana Krishnadas Babiji Maharaj used to play and sing, disciple of Bhakti Siddhanta. Very simple beat, but so amazing and funky. The only other person I ever saw play that was Radhanath Swami in New York, 97, after Rath Yatra. On a fiberglass mridanga, he was leading and playing this drum, playing that same beat that Aindra showed me. I mean, his chastisements were always for the betterment. That's what I generally understood. It was to help us to upgrade.
I used to have this, there's a latch on the outside of the door, right? I'm talking to you, not the camera. Yeah. So, there's always a latch on the outside. So somehow he would, he was very private. He needed his privacy, to chant his japa, very seriously, and take care of his deities properly without being disturbed by people. So he would make it look like he wasn't there. He would make it look like he wasn't in the room. He had gone out and he had latched it from the outside. So he had some system where there was some hole or something. He would stick his finger through and latch the door. He would push the latch, the other way and latch it, make it look like from the outside that it was latched and that he was out. Because usually when you come to a door, you see the latch is there. That means no one's there, unless somebody latched him in. So he would make it look like that. He would like lock himself in with his finger. That was a tactic that he had, and he wouldn't open it for anybody. Generally, sometimes, most of the time, of course, he wouldn't open it for anybody, but unless he really knew who it was. If he knew who it was, he would open it. Just like so. So what we did was each of us manufactured our own knock. Like Ram Rai had his, Gopal had his, the rest of the other, like maybe Arjun was there at the time, I don't remember, but he had his, Bhakta Greg had his. So I had mine. Mine was like this. Yeah, that was mine. So then he would know that it's me at the door, and he would come and open it.
Yeah, he took care of me when I had malaria. I had malaria here 4 times. 2 times I almost died. Once I was hospitalized for 2 weeks on 2 drips. And he took kirtan men off the kirtan schedule. And he told them, your kirtan service now is to attend to Gopal in the hospital. And like the kirtan schedule was rotating, he would have a man rotating with me as well. Carry the drip bag while I go to the toilet, help me with the shower in the toilet like that. Come and see me every day in the hospital, bring prasadam. Yeah. I had malaria 4 times. The 2 times it didn't kill me is when he gave me medicine. The other 2 times is I was kind of like in a different situation that I couldn't get access to Aindra or the medicine. So I really suffered. But yeah, he would care for the devotees as much as he could, as much as his time would allow, as much as his financial resource would allow as well. But most of all, I understood his caring nature was that of Krishna consciousness. He cared about me that I wouldn't get hurt, especially in relationships when I changed ashram. He cared that I would stay connected to the kirtan party, that I would not lose my connection to him, and that I'd stay Krishna conscious. So he was actually caring about my spiritual life, which is real care. And he would tell me that. He says, I'm not here to give you a pacifier. I'm here to give you the real thing. Like a baby, you just put a pacifier in the baby's mouth. But the real thing is the breast milk that nourishes and helps the child grow and gives the child life. So we were all children next to Aindra Prabhu, literally. We were literally kids goofing around. But he loved us, and the kids loved him. You always see Aindra Prabhu with youth, with the Gurukulis. He inspired the Vaishnava youth of the society. Not just Gurukulis. Of course, he was doing kirtan with Gurukul boys in the 80s. The actual Gurukul boys would come and do kirtan with him. And then they all grew up, and they were still doing kirtan with him. And he also inspired a whole generation of the youth. And he loved our energy, and we loved his energy. And he cared about us. So that he would be strict. He wouldn't be relaxed about Krishna consciousness. He was very strict, following the Siddhanta Prabhupada's books. Some people misunderstood him because of his artistic presentation or his artistic way of being. But if you could see beyond that and understand his actual points he was addressing, then it was clearly Srila Prabhupada's philosophy in ISKCON. So he cared about the Krishna consciousness of the devotees, and he cared about the Krishna consciousness of the Hare Krishna movement, which he felt needed to have the Hare Krishna put back in, or Kirtan put back into its right place in the movement. Movement, to move the heart towards Hare and Krishna. So he really did care.
Another thing was, he would really like, he would get a little upset, not upset, but he would get a little bit disheartened when, let's say, when I would leave, or when his mridanga player would leave, for some time. He had no one to play with. And so, I remember in 2007, in the summer, maybe May or I had to leave the country just for 5 days. I left the country for 5 days and came back in May. And then I left for a few weeks in July also and then came back. Now, I don't remember whether this was the time I left in May for 5 days or the time I left for 3 weeks in July. But one of those times when I came back, and I came back, I sat there, I was back, I was ready to play. He comes down for Kirtan, and he leans over and he says, "You came back to save my life." And he said that. "You've come back to save my life." I said, "Actually, I've come back to save my life too, because I was away from him, from doing Kirtan with him, so I also came back to save my life and, be with him again, play mridanga for him, do Kirtan with him again, That was a very nice exchange we had. We used to go to Mayapur and do Kirtan in front of Panchatattva, 5 days Kirtan in the evening. So this is Mayapur 2009, day 1, right? So this time I was staying a little far, maybe about a 7-minute walk or something from the temple, a little far from the temple. My father-in-law has a flat, a little distance away, still within the complex, but on the edge. It's kind of over by the, that Grihastha area, like at the end where the main road is, Pranabalab's building, Nrsinga Bhavan or something, Nrsinga something Bhavan. Anyway, so the way that it was supposed to happen was for these kirtans, 2 were scheduled, Aindra and my Guru Maharaj, Loknath Swami Maharaj. So I think it was Aindra was going to sing first, the first hour and a half, it was 3 hours kirtan. Then my Guru Maharaj would sing, the remaining time. So that's how it worked during that kirtan program. My Guru Maharaj and Aindra, they were singing. So, of course, obviously, being Aindra's personal mridanga player and being a disciple of His Holiness Loknath Swami, I'm, required to be there to play with both of them, in the mics. And we would take turns. We'd take turns with Gopal, so being mic'd up. But, I was definitely required in the beginning. He really wanted me to be there in the beginning because he liked to do half-speed dotal. And he felt that I was able to help him with that a lot, to hold down the fort, whenever he would sing half-speed dotal, better than the others. So, but what happened was, they had already started. So I was staying far. I tried my best to be on time, but I also had to make sure that I had my Gatorade, because it was going to be a long kirtan. I took some power bar, to make sure I'm strong enough, So I arrived there maybe 6 minutes late, and it had already started. Aindra already started singing, and he already started singing. He already started kirtan, and from what I hear other people saying, he did this maybe 2 or 3 times. I was only there for the 3rd time that he did this, but 2nd or 3rd time, the last time, he already started kirtan. I wasn't there, so in the mic he was like, and this is Mayapur, Mayapur festival time in front of Panchatattva. Thousands of devotees are there for this kirtan. So in the mic he's like, does anybody know the whereabouts of Vrindavan Das? Does anybody know where Vrindavan Das is? Vrindavan Das, Haribol, are you there anywhere? This, that, something like that. So he was calling for me in the mic, while I was on my way there. So as soon as I enter, and kirtan stops all of a sudden, and I hear Aindra, kirtan is stopped. It's silent. Then Aindra, suddenly in the mic, he's like, does anybody know the whereabouts of Vrindavan Das? Haribol. I'm sure this is recorded somewhere too. If you see him anywhere, grab him by the scruff of the neck and pull him in here. So, were you there? No.
I was
So that was I was like really surprised and shocked. I came with my mridanga. I was like, I was shocked to death, So I was really surprised. And some people turn around, they saw me, that come. I was like shocked. I said, no, I didn't know what to do. I just ran out. I just ran away, Such a surprising thing. Everybody's there, Practically all of our, main kirtaniyas, a few sannyasis there. My Guru Maharaj. Oh, actually, I think what it was that my Guru Maharaj was scheduled to sing first, and then Aindra afterwards this time. So then, but then I heard Aindra Prabhu start So I thought, oh, maybe my Guru Maharaj is still upstairs. It'll look a little better if I come down with him. Because I looked and I saw the scene and I didn't really notice him sitting there, even though he was actually already there. I didn't see him though. So I thought that he was upstairs in his room in the Shank building. So I ran out of the temple room when I heard that. I was surprised. I thought maybe I should just, I think this is the only thing I can do. Otherwise it'd be too embarrassing. I just come in all, alone in a huge temple room, thousands of devotees, Vrindavan Das, late, So then I went up to my Guru Maharaj's room and he's not there, nobody's there. And I was like, wow, And then I hear my Guru Maharaj's voice. I was at his door knocking. I hear his voice coming from the temple room. I'm like, oh, he's already there. He already went down. I wasn't able to go down there with him. I was like, man, So I went around and I how there's on the side of that Panchatattva temple room, there's, that the wall is like, there's little holes in the wall, and so that kind of design, kind of like what we have here in the temple room too, So I went over to that side and I was peeking through the holes to see what was going on, kind of check it out, and I was kind of contemplating whether I should just walk in or not, and if I skip today, it'll be such a bad thing, I can't just skip out on today. I have to go in there, somehow at some point, So I decided, I'll just go in there. So I did. I went in. It was a little difficult, but I did it. Quite embarrassing. And my mridanga was already there, I think, with someone else, maybe Deva Dharma was playing it. And so anyway, I get in there. I sit down. I'm just like, yeah. Then he grabs Vishuddhasattva's cane, and he's like as if he's pulling, like pulling me in, by the neck or something like this. He put it here, like this, like as if he's pulling me, getting me in the kirtan with Vishuddhasattva's cane, like this. So I was like, I kind of took it off, and that was quite a funny experience with Aindra.
This is just to conclude things. I went to Mayapur to recover from malaria and do Bhakti Sastri with Bhagavad Purana. We were studying together, living together, studying together. And the first thing that hit me when I got to Mayapur was where's the 24-hour Kirtan? Okay, it's in the Bhajan Kutir, it's a different kind of program, whereas here it's a very in-your-face preaching project to the pilgrims. And it's all pervading. As soon as the class is over, you hear the Maha Mantra. As soon as Sunday Aarti is over, you hear the Maha Mantra. It's constant theme of Krishna Bhavan Mandir. So we were missing that in Mayapur. Fortunately, the Panchatattva were coming. And I'd been working on trying to get Aindra to Mayapur. Some other devotees were also working on it, so we kind of teamed up, made this assertive effort to get him to come to Mayapur. And it just wasn't happening. He wasn't having it. Eventually I sent him a ticket and said, Prabhu, you use it or you lose it. It's up to you. And then I told him, Madhava's coming. I'm going to be here. And there's going to be 10,000 devotees. I lied. It was actually 5 to 6 for the Panchatattva installation. Somehow, eventually we convinced him and he came. By Panchatattva's mercy, he came. And that was a big thing for everyone. And it was a big thing for Aindra Prabhu because he never left Brindavan. He was so concerned that the kirtan would stop in his absence. And I told him, you have an Istagosti, you push everybody to do it. He set up a couple of Brajaris to do his deity seva. He brought his principal deities with him. And he got a strong team to stay behind. We flew him in for 3 to 4 days. And that was big because he'd taken the vow of Chaitra Sannyas, never to leave Chaitra, the Dham where he was living. But I told him, Prabhu, Mayapur, Vrindavan, same. So we got him there. We got him on that one. He says, okay, I'm defeated. All right, let's go. He came to Mayapur, Vrindavan, the same. So then, during the Panchatattva installation, we're on the main stage doing kirtan. Before the installation program started, and Jayapataka Maharaj performed the Adivas ceremony where we take a vow In that Adivas ceremony, we take a vow from sunrise the next morning, we'll be performing 72-hour kirtan non-stop. So he comes to Aindra in the kirtan, and he says, just a minute, and he stops the kirtan, and he says, Prabhu, I'm making the vow now. Whose name am I saying? Your name? And Aindra points to me and says, no, you say Gopal Das. So then it hit me. It really hit me like a ton of bricks. For the next 72 hours, I have to somehow manage this schedule and make sure it goes on. So Jayapataka Maharaj goes back to the tulsi and the coconut, and they do the puja, and he says my name on the sankalpa that they're taking a vow that this is going to go on for 72 hours, and then it really hit me. I was like, oh my God, oh Krishna, Panchatattva, what am I supposed to do? I only had it scheduled down for 24 hours. I was like running around like a madman trying to keep it together for the next 2 days. And then I started to really appreciate Aindra Prabhu. I struggled for 72 hours in Mayapur festival with his thousands of devotees, and he's been sitting in Brindavan for so many years, 20 plus something years, with very little help, trying to keep that schedule together. So that was his final lesson and instruction. He showed me that he was pushing me to do it. And then eventually he loved coming to Mayapur so much. He came 6 times every year consecutively, stayed with me. I arranged his whole program, his schedule, his kirtan, accommodation, also for the kirtan men. And we would discuss so much how important it is that there is a major kirtan program in Mayapur. We were discussing how to present a proper program to the Mayapur temple, that in front of the Panchatattva there is a preaching Mahamantra program. In front of the Panchatattva. Because there's kind of 2 temples. There's the Radha Madhava temple, there's the Panchatattva temple. So we reach out to the pilgrims, and how happy the Panchatattva Mahaprabhu would be to be seeing that going on. So we discussed, we strategized, we discussed with the management. And in many ways, he was pushing me to do that. Because I asked him to come to Mayapur and do it. I said, 6 months Vrindavan, 6 months Mayapur, Prabhu. Let's revolutionize the Hare Krishna movement. It's like, if I can't leave Vrindavan, Prabhu. Don't you understand how much I love Radha Shyam Sundar? I'm so attached to Radha Shyam Sundar, I can't leave it. But I do love the Panchatattva as well. It was always this struggle. Just 6 months. I'll manage the other 6 months in Mayapur. You just come for 6 months and give some inspiration. Ended up being it come for 5 to 6 days. But still, that desire is there for a future plan, maybe to push 24-hour kirtan in Mayapur in front of the Panchatattva for the big new temple project. So those were his kind of last directives to me. We were discussing it months before he left his body in Purushottam Mas. And he was telling me to use the same formula Srila Prabhupada used to set up 24-hour kirtan here, which is the same formula Aindra Prabhu follows pretty much.
What was that formula?
16 men rotating every 3 hours. But to find 16 solid men to stay in Mayapur throughout the year. That's who's going to do it, who's going to manage it, who's going to take responsibility.
In 2010, February 2010, I had a little get-together at my place, with a bunch of the young, like-aged friends of mine, on the Kirtan party or involved with the Kirtan party, It was more of like a, younger guy kind of thing, just, I didn't invite Aindra because, if he comes, everyone's going to be all serious. They won't be able to, just like, how it was, If he's there, they have to behave and, That's another thing. I'll have to get to that later. Some things that he used to tell me. I hope it doesn't offend anybody. It's the truth. This is what he said. But, so, I had like Amal. I had, I think Nakula was there maybe. Radhakrishna. Prashant came. Padakamal, maybe a few other boys. Gopal came also for a little while. So afterwards, when I think at that time Amal was staying here in the ashram, in this other room. And he came up, and when he came up he saw Aindra. Aindra asked him, "Where did you come from?" And he said, "Oh, I just came from Vrindavan's birthday party." He was like, Vrindavan's birthday party? He didn't invite me, Why didn't he invite me? I'm also his friend, Yeah, he said that to Amal. I'm also his friend. Why didn't he invite me too? He used to say that. He considered me like his friend. Another thing is, when I keep on remembering these things, just as I speak. That's what happens, right? So another thing is that I used to take prasad with him at night. This is when I was 16 years old. I took prasad back then. I used to take prasad with him at night quite often, because he'd finish his offering late, and then after that he would sit down and take prasad. We would have the prasad that he cooked. We'd just a lot of times it was just he and I, and we would just sit here, like normal talking, And so he's sitting there over there by Bhakta stove. That was like one of his usual sitting places. It's Bhakta stove there. Is this okay? And then, so I was sitting there like maybe just in front of where you were, taking prasad. And he was like, how old are you now? Yeah, how old are you? Because, he knew I was like, 15, 16. I said, yeah, I'm 16. He was like, I'm, what was he at that time? He was born in 53, right? That was 2003. So he's 50. He said, yeah, I'm 50. I'm 50, you're 16, but we're just sitting here like, I don't feel any age difference between us, You're only 16, I'm 50. I don't feel any age difference, It's just like, as if we're like, the similar age. There's no feeling of that, age difference. So he kind of like considered me like his friend. There was another time where he was telling me that, because he felt, there was this one devotee that I was like hanging out with quite a bit, this one Bengali devotee. I was hanging out with him quite a lot. He was even on the Kirtan party at the time, and he was telling me that, because he felt that devotee wasn't such good association for me, for some reason. So he was preaching against hanging out with him. He was preaching to me against hanging out with that devotee, because I was always with him. He was my close friend. He was like, you shouldn't, because he was like a little bit of a nonsense or something. So, or he did some nonsense things before. He was on the Kirtan party. So he was telling me once that, you shouldn't, you shouldn't hang out with him. He was chastising me. Why are you with him all the time? You shouldn't do that. What is this? I'm your friend. Why don't you hang out with me? Why don't you spend more time with me? I'm your friend.
The thing for me was that we were doing a house program on the rooftop of someone's building here in Brindavan. Padmalochan Prabhu just left that day, a very close god brother of his. And he dedicated that kirtan to Padmalochan Prabhu. It was a Friday night. I was concerned. Saturday he would dress the deities, which he'd have to get up very early for. He wouldn't take rest because he'd be finishing his deity offering at night. And he'd honor prasadam. And I knew the program on the roof would go late, so I was, Prabhu, can we just wrap it up early? It's going to be the weekend. You need your voice. You need to save your voice. So we're in the kirtan. I'm playing mridanga. The kirtan reaches a crescendo. It seemed to me like the kirtan was stopping, but then he started again, and I said, Prabhu, your voice, just end the kirtan. And he got angry. He looked at me. He's like, stop the kirtan dead. He looked at me. Gopal, when you understand that I'm going to do this, and he points to his throat, I'm going to do this kirtan to the day that I die, then you can take over. Then you're in charge. And then he's dropped the double beat back in and started the kirtan again. I was a little blown away by that. I got a little upset. I passed the mridanga to someone else, and I waited till the kirtan finished, and then I ducked out of that program. And then I found out after he left his body that he nominated me on his account for all of his Lakshmi. So somehow I got all his Lakshmi come to me, which I just put straight back to the 24 kirtan, and somehow he had told other people as well. A few different people verified that to me later, that he wanted me to take over after he left, which came to me as very shocking news, because I'm nowhere near qualified. I'm just a mridanga player. But in this situation we have here, we have a good team of nice devotees. We just get together, make a schedule, and Haribol. Aindra Prabhu is the director of 24 Kirtan, and we're all assisting him.
I want to kind of describe is more like the last days, the last days of Aindra Prabhu's physical presence, since I was here. So those are actually some nice days. We had some really nice kirtans together. Even though it got really hot, the weather was really intense. May, June here, the hottest months, it gets up to maybe 120 degrees or so. It was like 48, 49 Celsius, sometimes. So, May, June. I remember that Janardhan started Tulsi Puja in the courtyard. As you can see nowadays, some people may not know this because they weren't here at the time, but like nowadays, generally, after the 4 o'clock Aarti, Tulsi Puja starts, Now that Yashoda Damodar is in the Tulsi Stamba, now, they're worshipping Tulsi in the courtyard. But at that time, it wasn't like that. At that time, Tulsi Puja was at, what time? 5:30? Maybe 5:30. 5:30 or 5:45. Maybe 5:30. Tulsi Puja would start in the courtyard. Full-on Tulsi Puja. We'd have to stop our shift. We'd have to stop our kirtan with the harmonium, with the instruments. Just start chanting japa so that, we keep the Mahamantra going. And then Tulsi Puja would start, in the courtyard for 5-10 minutes. And then it would stop and then we would continue again. So that would kind of break the momentum. Aindra Prabhu was really upset about that, actually. I remember those days quite clearly. It was really hot. The conditions were getting quite austere. And my wife was also complaining sometimes, sometimes there's no electricity for so many hours. It was actually quite an austere time, beginning of July 2010. But towards the middle of July, when Aindra Prabhu disappeared, it wasn't so bad. As long as we had electricity, it was okay. But just still, for some reason, even in June, even previous to that, I was having this urge. I had this feeling to go to Malaysia, go to Thailand. So I thought, okay, what we can do is go down there, and there's lots of nice devotees there. They would, we can give them a little association, a little taste of our, Vrindavan Kirtan a little bit, bring it there a little bit.
Aindra Prabhu had expressed his views and opinions about the way ISKCON was going on Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day here in Brindavan, and it didn't go down very well. His presentation wasn't very good, it wasn't accepted very well, and he got in trouble, a lot of trouble for that. And there were some ramifications that came. The authorities told him that if he printed his book, if he continued with this kind of attitude and the way that he was speaking, he would have to leave the Krishna Bhavan Mandir. So I kind of told him, Prabhu, I'll be your lawyer. I'll do the negotiating with the GBC and whoever it was that was giving him a hard time. Fair enough, they had some valid points. He had some valid points. But there seemed to be some kind of bad feelings with certain individuals. So I was willing to mediate that for him. And so I told him, all right, we got option 1. If they ask you to leave, you stay outside. Or you come to Mayapur and do 24 Kirtan there. I'll be there with you, I'll assist you, I'll help set you up, whatever it takes. And I had a third plan that I was starting to initiate, which was my dream that I told him maybe 15 years ago, which was that it was level 1 and level 2. Level 1 was, and we discussed it that winter with Ramabhadra Prabhu, to fly Aindra into New York for Rath Yatra. Ramabhadra was asking him that he could fly him into New York just for Rath Yatra and then fly him back to Delhi. You know, because we took him to Mayapur for 5 days. Okay, so come to New York for 5 days, right? It's a little different because Mayapur is the Dham. New York's not really the Dham, but... So I thought, all right, let's take it a level ahead. So if they want some kind of agreement from Aindra that he has to take some time out from his situation here in Vrindavan as a punishment, we'll take him to America. And we'll take him to every single North American Rath Yatra. And we'll follow the Festival of India tour. And work with Manu on the bus tour. And that way, regenerate and kickstart the Hare Krishna movement back into its actual focus, which is Kirtan. And I was working on that on a ground level. I was discussing it with Madhuha, I was discussing it with Manu, and I thought, okay, I'd kickstarted it in New Vrindavan. Gauravani took that baby, and he's going with it. So I thought, all right, let's start it in Toronto, Canada. Bhakti Marg Swami was very happy to facilitate. He even paid for our tickets to come. So it was like a trial run. Let's see how this goes in Toronto. I was discussing with Manu, telling Akinchana, let's get a core Kirtan team together, and then we'll bring Aindra in. And every single North American Rath Yatra will be Harinam Sankirtan on the streets, 2 days of 12-hour Kirtan, if not a 24-hour Kirtan, and then the Rath Yatra procession. And then we'll go to the next center and keep on doing that. That was level 1. Level 2, do that all over the world of ISKCON, in every single temple. To do like a week or a 2-week seminar discussing practical cartel playing Mridanga classes, Harinam Sankirtan, 2 days of 12-hour Kirtan in every single temple in ISKCON. And push Kirtan. And I told Aindra Prabhu, you won't have any problem to get Kirtan devotees to come and stay with you in Vrindavan after that. And I think the people would be happy, and the authorities, that, you know, he'd spend his time out well and he's back and he's going to behave. So that was what I was doing. And we were in Toronto doing this 2 days of 12... It was actually, 2 days of 12-hour Kirtan, because we didn't want the night schedule to disrupt the services that devotees had to do for Rath Yatra. If anything, people were making garlands in the temple during the Kirtan, doing the chop-up in the temple room while the Kirtan was going on. So before we started, I called Vrindavan and I spoke to him to ask for his blessings for the Kirtan. And again, I was telling him about my strategy and the plan that would take him on the Festival of India tour through North America, like that. It will give the devotees a lot of inspiration. Can you imagine Aindra in North America through every single Rath Yatra? What would that do for all the temples in North America? It would revolutionize Kirtan. It would be something else. But he didn't realize that, because Aindra's reality was his room and the temple room. And then Mayapur, and then he started to see a different picture of ISKCON when he started to come to Mayapur. He didn't see the international picture. So I was telling him that on the phone, and then Madhava came in the room. Hey Madhava, it's Aindra Prabhu. Madhava spoke to Aindra and asked him for blessings to do 24-hour Kirtan, and Aindra Prabhu told him, you have my blessings to do 24-hour Kirtan all over the world. And then they had some personal exchanges, and then I was speaking to him again. I said, Prabhu, I'm coming back in a week. I could hear in his voice that he was upset. And I thought he was upset because, for one, he didn't have that many men. There was like 6 or 7 Kirtan men to cover 24 hours that summer. And his best men had gone, traveling and preaching, festival programs. He gave me a shopping list. I asked him some things for his deities, some boga, some personal things he needed. And then I was like, Prabhu, don't worry, I'm going to try bring back as many good men as I can find. As many good devotees that can commit. I'll try. If not, I'm coming back within 10 days. I booked my ticket, I'm on my way. And I could hear something in his voice that I'd never heard before. As a Mridanga player, I tuned into his voice and his kirtan acutely. There was something that wasn't registering right. I couldn't figure it out.
Okay, in any case, this is my last personal meeting with Aindra, 72 hours before he went back to Godhead. We were leaving the next morning, for a month, because I decided to do a little Kirtan tour in Malaysia, for a month's time. I took Radhakrishna with me. So, I came up, he gave me some CDs, I mentioned this before, but anyway, he gave me some CDs from the other room to sell in Malaysia. And I came in here, to talk to him a little bit. you know. And so he was standing right here, leaning on this, kind of, you know, with his arm or hand. I was standing here. And, you know, this is where he would cook, right here, you know. His gas can was inside. He would sit right here in the little, on top of that little stool. He would cook right here. This is where that whole explosion started, you know. So anyway, he was standing here, I was standing right there. And one thing he said to me, I know that he said this to Kinchan too, the last time he talked to him. One thing he said to me was that, you know I'm going to miss you. You know, usually, you know, I had traveled places many, many different times in the last 10 years. He never said this particular thing. You know, he would always, you know, he'd always, you know, make faces and sad faces and, you know, pretend to cry and, you know, make noises and stuff. And, you know, he would show, he would lament a little bit sometimes. But he never said this particular thing, that I know I'm going to miss you. I'm sure I'm going to miss you. That's what he said. And that was in front of Damodarastakam Das. Damodarastakam said, yeah, I'm going to miss him too. You know, but, you know, sure enough, when I came back, you know, the other devotee was physically present. Aindra Prabhu wasn't, you know. So he was like, yeah, I know I'm going to miss you. I'm sure I'm going to miss you, he said. And, yeah, that's it. We ended our conversation. And then he came back over here, and he, another thing is at that time he was chanting, what was it, 2 lakhs of japa or something? He was chanting like, 116 rounds a day. 2 lakhs of japa he was chanting every day. 116 rounds every day at that time. You know, so he was chanting. He came back down here to finish his japa. He had his chair here, right in front of Nitai Sachisutta. And, you know, he was really into, it seemed at that time, like leading up to that time, he was really getting absorbed in Gaura Lila. You know, he was really listening to Chaitanya Bhagavat a lot at that time. Every day, all the time, he was listening to Chaitanya Bhagavat. He had this recording of some devotee reciting Chaitanya Bhagavat in English. And he was listening to that all the time. I remember. And that in particular he never did before, just, you know, before he departed. And it seemed he was really getting absorbed in Gaura Lila. So that was my last sight of Aindra Prabhu, you know, sitting here in his chair. You know. Of course I embraced him, you know. I still remember how it feels, how his body felt when I embraced him, you know. The feel of that, I could still feel it, you know. And that was over here, and then that was it. He came, he sat down, and started chanting again, and then I left. Closed the door, and then that was it.
We started the Kirtan, and then we were going on Harinam, Sankirtan, Naga Sankirtan. Manu Prabhu came with the bus, filling the bus up with devotees. Let's go. We got the Kirtan on the bus. We were going down Young Street. Bus pulled up. Got one group of devotees set up, and we were going back for another group of devotees. And then I started to get like this dizziness, started feeling weird. I wasn't feeling right. Started feeling this pain in my chest, solar plexus, heart chakra area. I was like, Manu, I don't know what's going on. I don't think I can go out in this Harinam. It was an ecstatic Harinam. There's 200 devotees, 8 mridanga players. I was like, wow, this is going to be but then, boom, something really hit me heavy. And I was like, Manu, I got to go back to the temple. So I went back to the temple with the second bus. We loaded up more people. Again, I was in between deciding whether I should go in the Harinam or go back to the temple. I couldn't quite figure out what I needed to do. I said, Manu, I'm not feeling well. I'm going back to the temple with you. So he drove the bus back. I went upstairs and prayed to Tulsi, taking darshan of the deities. I thought maybe something to do with my body because I haven't eaten properly. So I went and took some prasad, and it wasn't that. Like, and then a very close friend of Aindra Prabhu, Pradeep Sharma, his name's now Premananda Prabhu. His relative saw me. He took me to his house. There's beautiful Govardhan Srila Radhakrishna deities and Tulsi. And as soon as I went in his house, I felt like I was in Vrindavan, in front of Govardhan Hill. And we just started talking about Vrindavan. We started glorifying Vrindavan, and we started talking about Aindra Prabhu. And then I started to pray to Super Soul in my heart. I was thinking, what's wrong? There's something wrong. Why am I feeling like this? Super Soul communication was coming back. Go back to the temple. Go back to the temple. So I told Premanand Prabhu, I think I got to go back to the temple, Prabhu. It's kind of getting late for me. He was insisting I take some prasad. So I honored a little Mahaprasad, and then we left. As soon as I got back to the temple, there was Kirtan going on. And I thought, oh, that must be the 24-hour Kirtan. I mean, my father-in-law, Ajamil Prabhu, was supposed to be scheduled. So I thought, why isn't he doing the Kirtan? Someone else. It's Bhakti Marg Swami. What's going on? And then everyone was like, Gopal, Gopal, everyone's been looking for you. Something happened to Aindra Prabhu. But nobody wanted to tell me because you don't want to be the bearer of bad news. So I went to my computer and there's a Skype message. Oh, there's been a fire accident. Aindra Prabhu's left his body. I was like, no. I could understand a fire accident. That's an exaggeration. Maybe he's in a coma. Maybe something. He's in a hospital or something. You know, I couldn't believe it. Madhava's in tears in front of Gaur-Nitai's altar. Akinchan is flipping out. I'm like, what's going on? What's that? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Is this really happening?
I've had many dreams, since he's left, many of which establish the fact that he's still present. Because in the dreams that I've had, I could really feel that he was there. It was present day, like now, not before. It wasn't like I'm dreaming about something that happened before when he was physically present. No, it was now, like the present moment. And he's here, I'm here with him in his room. Most of the time it's like, in his room, he's here, he's definitely here, listening to everything. So, in those dreams, and this happens often, occasionally, I have these dreams. In the dream, I feel that I'm with Aindra physically. And whatever had happened in July 2010 or whatever, that's all just, invalid. It doesn't really have any ultimate substance to it, And the way I perceive it when I'm in that dream is that there was something that happened in July 2010 or something, maybe some little gap or something there, but no, that's all taken care of now. There's nothing like that now. I'm here with Aindra, right now, at the present date, So much so that when I wake up, then only I realize that oh yeah, it's it's this date and all the external things that had happened. I have to actually readjust my consciousness. Once I wake up from these dreams. I actually had one day before yesterday. Same thing. Let me see, I have them written here somewhere. Let me see if I can try to refresh my memory. Yeah, so this was day before yesterday. Or no, not day before yesterday, yesterday. Yesterday morning before I woke up. I was playing with him in a small kirtan, just maybe me, him, and another person, And it was, I had this conception, it was a present date, For some reason, it was a present date. I'm sitting here with Aindra, doing this kirtan with him, playing mridanga, and but I'm trying to document it somehow by taking a video or recording it or taking pictures or something, because it's present date, and supposedly that happened, July 2010. So, so he asked me, why are you doing that? Why are you so bent on documenting this or whatever? So I said, well, because unfortunately for me, you've already left your body. And he said, no, I didn't.
Checked my computer. There's a message from Brindavan, Aindra Prabhu left his body. I was like, no. I immediately actually wanted to find out where is Madhava, to verify if it was true. I went and found Madhava, we embraced, and he was just in tears. He couldn't speak, couldn't get a word out of his mouth. He's just in front of the altar praying to Gaur Nitai, and I was like, whoa, whoa. So I went back up to my place, and I called the temple president, and he started confirming it. And as he was confirming it, I'm packing my bag at the same time. Immediate reaction was, I got to see this for real. I don't believe this. I don't believe that he's actually left his body. Again, the denial. And then Panchagauda was like, what do we do? I said, you call Mahanidhi Swami, you have him do the final rites, you take his citizenship document, because he became a citizen of India, and you show that to the police, so that there's no confusion. And I said, I told Pancha, I'm coming right now. And I was packing my bag, speaking to him at the same time. And people are flipping out all over the place. People are crying, and I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Kinshana was flipping out. Somehow I didn't initially flip out. That happened when I came back to Brindavan, because I couldn't accept it. I was too geographically far away. And then the next day we went on Rath Yatra, and it kind of started to hit me a little bit then, because I could see how much the other devotees were affected by it. And then on the Rath Cut, there's Jayananda's picture, Jayananda Prabhu, and there's Aindra's, and I'm like, this is crazy. What? Why is Aindra's picture on the Rath Cut? Again, mind wouldn't accept it. I don't know if it was like a coping mechanism. It was just like, no, this isn't happening. This isn't happening. But I tell you what, that procession, we all gave it our full, our level best. We gave it as much as we could on that Harinam procession to run our Rath Yatra. And then we're on the island, and I got a call from someone in Vrindavan. Bibi Govinda Maharaj called to speak to Madhava, and then it started to slowly set in more and more. And we couldn't get a flight out that night. The next day we got a flight out. Within 2 days I was back in Vrindavan. And then it really hit me. When I saw the room exploded, and I saw the devotees, it was just, I couldn't comprehend what exactly had happened. But it became clear later that he was desiring to leave his body. And actually, Aindra Prabhu, from the first day I met him, was only interested in going back home to Godhead. He was very much frustrated and fed up with being stuck in the material world. He only wanted to go back home to Godhead. He was frustrated about many things. One thing he always expressed to me, his frustration, was that devotees don't do Kirtan anymore in the Hare Krishna movement. So he questioned whether it was the Hare Krishna movement or not, right? If you're not chanting Hare Krishna, the Yuga Dharma, and doing some Kirtan on the streets or in the temples, congregationally, then what is that? It's a very huge question in my mind. What happened to the Hare Krishna movement? Where's the Kirtan gone? So at least in Vrindavan, home base, Srila Prabhupada's home, he always wanted it to be going on. Srila Prabhupada always wanted it to be going on. And Aindra Prabhu pushed that as a reality. And at the same time, I always felt that he was upset with that he was stuck on this material plane. And he wasn't connecting to the eternal Leelas of Krishna. But then it became clear that many devotees in this community in Vrindavan told me that he was praying to leave his body. And the gas bottle which leaked, it had leaked and exploded 2 or 3 times before with other people in the room. That happened. Apparently that happened. And he got his heart-filled desire. He left his body in Vrindavan, which means you go back home to Godhead, Golok Vrindavan.
Yeah. Well, we can, keep his legacy alive, of course, by, following his instructions, and, keeping the essence of his instructions alive, not watering things down, hodgepodge. keeping the standards that he set, like that. Performing as much of the Yuga Dharma as possible. He used to do 14 hours of Kirtan a day, He used to say that, if you do 14 hours of Kirtan, you'll find out what that does to you, like that. So that was basically his main thing. He really helped to reestablish Sankirtan consciousness. Like there's a few things here that I have, about his glories. He encouraged and inspired so many devotees around the world, by his pure chanting of the holy name. Many of those, being ex-Guru Kulis who are just about to drift away. This is another amazing thing about Aindra, that I hear this all the time from so many different people, so many different, young Guru Kulis that are born in Vaishnava families, but they're on their way, out. They're on their way into the material energy, They're not being pulled into Krishna consciousness until they heard Aindra Prabhu's Kirtan. When they heard Aindra Prabhu's Kirtan, they immediately, started pulling back into Krishna consciousness, And they came right back upon hearing his Kirtan performance, I recently met many of these cases, There's one boy in Canada, in Toronto, that told me that I would be in a bar right now if it weren't for Aindra. He's considered by some as our contemporary Namacharya. So, contemporary Namacharya, chanting 2 lakhs every day, preaching the glories of the holy name. So, he's propagating the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, So if you criticize him, you're committing the first offense against the holy name. He really helped to reawaken awareness of the great necessity and importance of performing the Yuga Dharma, Harinam Sankirtan. Another amazing thing about Aindra is that just by sitting right here in one place, of course, by doing his bhajan in his room, his Shuddhanam bhajan, and by performing Kirtan in the temple room, that really had such a great impact. It had such an influence over people all over the world. People all over the entire planet became influenced just by him doing what he was doing right here in this room and downstairs in the temple room. One time he said that there's only 3 places I can be found: in my room, in the temple room, or in the bathroom. That's it. Because that's the way it was. And then, occasionally, he would be invited to someone's house, or, actually quite occasionally we were invited for different programs to do Kirtan. To do Kirtan at someone's house or someone's event. Of course, he would never go to weddings. I think there's one instance where he was invited to go to a wedding to do Kirtan, and he put a blindfold over his eyes and sang, he was such a renunciate.
It's a shame he didn't leave much of a game plan for the future of 24-hour Kirtan, besides me, because I'm not that reliable as he was. But somehow, Aindra Prabhu wanted to go back home to Godhead, and Vrindavan Dham fulfills the desire, spiritual desires, and he got to go back home to Godhead. On Hira Panchami, an auspicious day, pastime that Lord Jagannath has with Lakshmi. But yeah, it was very difficult in Toronto for me. I was stuck. I couldn't move. I couldn't get out of there. I couldn't get back to India. It took 2 days. And moreover, I felt like I'd left him. I felt like I'd abandoned him to go out and preach, and he always needed his mridanga player with him. And we had this agreement. Vrindavan would stay, I would go, I would come back, Vrindavan could leave. We would never leave Aindra alone. But somehow Vrindavan had to leave for some visa issue or some preaching program or something. And it was like a few days, maybe even 2 days after Vrindavan left. I guess Aindra was just feeling like he had no support, no men, no help. And Krishna took him to fulfill his desire to go back home. I mean, of course, all those external factors have some interplay in the thing, but ultimately the underlying fact was he had this very clear desire to go back home to Godhead. Whether it was an accident or there's so many different theories and questions, because really no one knows what happened behind that door. It's between him and Krishna what happened behind that door. But you leave your body in Vrindavan, you go back home to Godhead. And he was found paying his obeisances on Nityananda's lotus feet. And in some ways I realized later in retrospect, the closest people to him were the furthest away when it happened. Because for us, there was no way we could have coped with seeing that and dealing with that. It just would have been devastating to us. I would have jumped on the fire if I was here. When I saw that video of him being burnt, I would have... There's nothing to live for. For us, he was our everything in Kirtan. And to just all of a sudden be gone like that. I mean, Krishna took him in a way that it broke our hearts. But at the same time, even though it's so painful to not physically see Aindra Prabhu and hear his kirtans, his kirtans changed devotees' lives. His kirtans saved people's lives. I know people who were suicidal, and because of his kirtan, they changed their mind about killing themselves.
Another thing that we would do quite often is whenever there was a devotee leaving their body, because, devotees come here to leave their body. Obviously, there's like always so many devotees, leaving their body in Vrindavan, There was. So we would go and do Kirtan. Aindra Prabhu would go and do Kirtan and sing, for that person leaving their body. So many times, I remember this. Many different times, many different places. Especially at the MBT, many times we went when devotees were leaving their bodies. I can remember so many. There's Kushakarta, there was some other Mataji in the MBT. Another devotee, some South Indian devotee, I remember. There was Suchi Rani was also another one. Nanda Tirtha's mother. Those were some good kirtans. Over in their house, that big, sandstone house. Yeah, me and Madhava were there at that time. Many different devotees. When they were leaving their bodies, we would come and do kirtan for them. That was another nice thing. Yeah. But he said that he didn't want anybody leading kirtan when he was leading when he was leaving his body, because he would just get upset. He would just get up, because he'd have to, correct the kirtan leader. You're not singing this properly, So he didn't want to get disturbed by that. So Krishna made an arrangement. He could, leave on his own. And just over here. Anyways, so these are some of the great things about Aindra. He was very learned, very extremely learned, actually, very extremely intelligent and extremely learned. All kinds of tattva, all kinds of, he knew Shastra very deeply, very deeply. He could talk to you for hours and hours and hours about Shastra. About different things. He was also very learned in Padma Purana. He would follow Padma Purana quite a bit. He was the most expert dresser of Radha Shyam Sundar here. He personally trained Anada to do it. And Anada's dressing just like he used to. So, Radha Shyam Sundar they look just like Aindra Prabhu dressed, because he trained Anada and Anada's doing it. Yeah, that's a good thing, so that it's not like Aindra's gone now, we're not going to be able to see how he dressed the deities. Yeah. Yeah, he was very expert at smashing any misconceptions that anybody had. I think I mentioned that previously. Yeah. Yeah, that's about it for now.
Kirtan is the only thing that is there to do in this life. And it is not easy to do it without him. But somehow we have to push on, we have to keep on chanting, we have to keep on performing the Yuga Dharma. And we're not trying to pretend to be Aindra, but we're doing our best. And Aindra Prabhu, in many ways, he's a success story. Here's a person in America, meets the Hare Krishnas, gets a book, hears the Kirtan, joins the Kirtan party, meets his Satguru, Srila Prabhupada, comes to Brindavan, chants Hare Krishna his whole life and goes back home to God. That's actually a success. Even though it's devastating for us, it's a success. It's a very successful story. And I would see when he would do Kirtan here in Vrindavan for devotees who would leave their body, which he did so many Kirtans for so many different devotees. I can't even remember how many devotees he did Kirtan for who were leaving their bodies. People I didn't even know. I was there playing Mridanga and the people were checking out. And he would be jumping up and down in ecstasy in the Kirtan afterwards. Jai! Back home, back to Godhead, ki Jai. We were in this tiny apartment and this girl left her body. He was jumping up and down on the bed. Hariba! Hariba! Prabhu, you're going to break the bed. Play the Mridanga, shut up! Hariba! Hariba! Back home to Godhead, ki Jai! That's really what we're here to do. We're not in this material world to take birth again and again and again. We're here to get out and take as many people back home to Godhead with us. So we'll be in that Kirtan with Aindra Prabhu in his spiritual form in Golok Vrindavan. In our spiritual forms, either in Nitya Navadvip Dham with the Panchatattva Mahaprabhu or in Radha Krishna Leela in Golok Vrindavan. The Kirtan goes on eternally. And we're just practicing here to qualify for there. Whoever comes forward gets that blessing. Whoever participates gets the mercy. You don't participate, you don't get the mercy. It's that simple. It's the Yuga Dharma. Yes, there are many expansions of the Yuga Dharma in the form of book distribution and other things, but it's primarily Harinam Sankirtan. That's what Mahaprabhu came to relish as the devotee of the Lord, as the Lord. And it's a gift that we've been given that we can't take for granted. And Aindra Prabhu did not take it for granted. He relished and chanted the Maha Mantra with his everything, every day of his life practically. And that he's instilled in us, the 24-hour Kirtan devotees and many devotees around the world. And we just hope and pray that everyone can come to that level of understanding of how important, really important it is to chant Hare Krishna, to dive deep into the nectar of the holy name, because there is no other way in Kali Yuga. There is no other way. There's nothing else in this world that can compare to Kirtan. Chanting the Maha Mantra. It is the absolute method. Goloka Premadan Harinam Samkirtan. What else is there in this world? Serving the Vaishnavas through Kirtan. So Aindra Prabhu's departure was devastating. I'll never get over it. It's not going to be an easy thing to get over. By serving the 24-hour Kirtan, by serving his life's mission and work under the guidance of Srila Prabhupada, then I have some hope of solace of heart. Outside of that, it's just too difficult to cope with. I know many devotees, they don't even come to Brindavan now. Because for them, Brindavan meant Aindra Prabhu's Kirtan. And without his Kirtan, they couldn't feel like they were connecting into Vrindavan. But still the mercy is there. Just by doing Kirtan in Vrindavan, one can connect. But somehow he made it easy. By his mercy, he made it easy for thousands of devotees to chant Hare Krishna. Somehow. But now the work is on us. It's on us to do the needful to get that taste, to come up to that standard. It's easy. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. But it's not that easy in the sense that he's not physically with us. because he made it so much more easier and so much more relishable and so much more blissful and so much more ecstatic. Legendary Kirtanier, Aindra Prabhu. And a prime example of a disciple of Srila Prabhupada who has successfully practiced Krishna consciousness and gone back home to Godhead. Whose footsteps we try to humbly follow, but not imitate. A unique individual in his own right, who offered a very beautiful contribution to Srila Prabhupada's movement that is unmatched. Everyone has to make their contribution. And so we humbly ask all the devotees in the world to come and spend some time in Brindavan and chant with us and get recharged and then go back out. We have a facility, we have training programs, and of course the Dham. It's so supportive of chanting Hare Krishna. It's so easy to be Krishna conscious here. There's no distractions. You go in the temple and chant Hare Krishna in the beautiful darshan. Go to the morning program, listen to Bhagavatam. It's a perfect place to live and die. And Aindra Prabhu lived that by his example, by living and dying in Vrindavan. There are three kinds of Brajbasis. Those that are born here, those that live here, and those that die here. And the ones that die here are considered the topmost. Because you may be born here and go, you may live here and you may live somewhere else and leave, because you're not born here. But those that die here are considered the topmost. So we humbly pray and hope to get the mercy of that Brajbasi, so that we can engage in Nitya Seva, the eternal Seva of Nam Sankirtan, where every step is a dance and every song, every word is a song. Golokera prema dana hari nam sankirtana. We're fortunate. Kirtan. I think I have to go. Hare Krishna.